Hey everybody! Well, it's the first time that I'm streaming live, so let's see if this works. So in this tutorial, I wanted to take a photo of New York City, a place that is very fond to me. We've been living here for around 11 years, and we miss it very much. So I just wanted to take a photo and take a look at it, appreciate all the times that we have been there, and just make it come alive. So thanks everybody for joining in, and for those who are not watching it live as well. If you have any questions at any moment, I actually am not sure how to watch the comments as I go, so I'll check them out later. And you can also email me your photo questions to myphototvnyc@gmail.com. Okay? We're also going to be starting a call for photos. So if you have a photo that you want me to edit live, you can send it over to the same email, and that's myphototvnyc@gmail.com. Okay, so let's get this started. So this is my Lightroom view. Lightroom is my go-to app to edit photos. I rarely use Photoshop to edit photos. I use Photoshop to compose photos. So to do really cool compositions, and we'll also do some lives of that. But when you want to merge photographies, and when you want to create worlds, or you want to do something a little bit different with art, then you can also use Photoshop. But to edit, I would definitely recommend Lightroom, as it's quicker. They made it really easy for us to just jump in and edit our photos to make it look amazing. So in my description below, I added that this particular photo is in RAW, okay? So when you import your photos and they're in the RAW format, you may think that they look very bland, they look dull, and they're really not how you envisioned your photo. But RAW gives you all the information that you need to edit it. Rather than JPEG is already compressed, it already has the information that the camera thinks that is the best contrast, the best exposure, the best saturation. So if you do have JPEG, you can definitely still edit it in Photoshop. It's just going to be a little bit more destructive on the pixels. You won't have as much control as going, for example, if I go to my develop settings, again, this is a raw photo. So when I go to my develop settings and I really push the exposure to the maximum, you can really see that I still have all that information in my shadows, you see? And when I go all the way down, you can still see information over here all in the cloud. So I'm just going to reset that. Rather than JPEG, it's not going to have as much information. So this is the particular photo I selected. I'm just going to start in my develop setting. If you guys want a Lightroom tutorial from the basics all the way to actually editing your own photos, that is on the schedule. I'm going to be sharing a live online schedule for you guys to follow and know which programs are going to be shown and scheduled. But this one is just to show how to edit it when you already have a little bit of basic knowledge of Lightroom. So right now we're going to, the first step I do is I usually set my exposure where I want it to be. For example, here, if I put it one stop higher, and I'm actually, if you see my mouse, it's over here. So I selected 1.15 steps higher, and that gives me enough to see when I'm going to be editing. I can do selective adjustments afterwards. But first, afterwards, I put a little bit of contrast. This is not the final, it's just to make it look a little bit more how I envisioned it. And when you are taking photos, it is important for you to envision your photo and think about how you want it to look. Do you want it to be as accurate as possible to the scene? Do you want to make it a little bit more dramatic? All that's you're going to have the control to do that afterwards here in Lightroom. So after my contrast, I think that my highlights are pretty good. The shadows, I want to play with that a little bit later. I'm going to add a little bit of texture. Texture gives you that sharpness when you have some texture. When you have, for example, in buildings, it's a great way to add texture. Clarity gives you some contrast in the midtones. And then the dehaze. You see how this photo is a little bit hazy, right? Because of all of there's something in the air that usually makes the photos, when they're an urban landscape, they make it a little bit hazy, depending on where the sun is, where the light is. So if you go with that dehaze, it is going to give you a sharper, more contrastier look. So what I usually like to do is push it all the way and see how it's going to look. And I say, well, of course, I don't like that. So at least I know up to where I have my control. So I like it around here. So those are some very basic general adjustments that we just did. Super important. You're always going to want to go in and fix your detail here in the detail module, specifically the noise reduction. That's one of the very first things as well I do when I start editing, because you want to get rid of that noise that you have. I use a Sony Alpha 7R3, and that's my go-to camera for now. I'm very, very pleased with it. It really helps with the low light circumstances. It has a high ISO sensitivity, so I like to use it, but it does leave a little bit of noise. So when you go to your noise, I usually go to around 25, try not to go over 30, but if you do want to go over, you can just push it over to where you want. You can see here I'm in the limit, and it starts getting very pasty, very pasty. So if your look is pasty and you're going to print it on a canvas, awesome, that's a great look for you. Right now, I'm not going for a pasty look, I'm going for a sharp look. So I want to do as much noise reduction as possible without making the image pasty. Usually that's between 25 to 30. But you can try it out because no photo is the same. So here you can see my 100%. When you are in fact editing the noise and fixing it, you do want to go into your 100%. And you can make sure it's there over here in your navigator. You can see it's 1:1. Okay. So that's my basic adjustment. My other basic adjustment that you should have as well in your process when you start it is to make sure that you have enabled your profile correction. You can see the before and after. It just, for example, on this lens I have, it just takes away a little bit the distortion, as well as takes away some vignetting that is going on around the corners, if you can take a look at that. Again, here it is, without the correction and with the correction, okay? Afterwards, I go to my straighten tool. There's two ways. You can either do it manually, and it's tricky because it's a landscape, so maybe you're going to have some of the buildings straight vertically. Maybe the horizon is going to be a little bit off on the horizon, on the horizontal. So you can select how it looks best. If you prefer, you can do the little rule over here, the ruler, and then just select which is the angle that you think that is the straightest, and it will do it for you. I usually do the ruler and then adjust it a tiny bit. I select my main focal point, and in this case, it's the World Trade Center over here, the Freedom Tower, and I want to make sure that that tower and that building is straight. Okay? So that's my guide. If I feel that it's a little bit off, you can still continue to play around with it until you think that that's a good look. So when I take a look at this photo, I see that it looks pretty good. All the detail, all the information is there, but all of a sudden I'm taking a look at this huge line that is, of course, not there because of natural reasons, that looks like it's a reflection on the glass. So this photo was taken on the Hudson Yards on the first day that it opened. It was March 11th, 2020. That was the last day that I went to New York City to visit before everything that is happening on right now. So when you go to the terrace, it's pretty amazing. I really recommend it to anybody that comes over to New York City when the tourism is back open. But they have huge glasses. They have huge glasses from the floor all the way around 10 feet tall. So this piece of glass was reflecting some sort of lighting on the back. So right now I'm gonna go to Q, or over here if you want to go manually, and that's your healing. This is your healing spot correction tool, and I make sure that I'm on heal. So 90% of the time I'm on heal, 10% of the time I'm on clone. The difference is that heal is going to automatically decide which is your luminescence of the area that is to be fixed. Okay, so if you press H, it unhides what you're going to be doing with the healing brush. If you press H again, then it's going to be hidden. To expose it, you just press H of hide again. And again, the keyboard shortcut for the healing brush is Q. Okay, so you can leave and then come back, but you can see how quickly it removed that reflection. I still see some reflection over here. It automatically selects a spot for you, but I like to have full control over what spot it selects. For example, here I think that if I hide this, it looks a little bit weird with the area it's selected. It looks a little bit too dark for me, so I'm just going to drag it over. I just select it with the mouse and drag it over to a place that I think that is more suitable. And I think that around there is okay. And then I'm just going to continue because this line goes all the way down. There we go. I see some tiny dots, some tiny white specks. So I just really quickly do a correction on these, clean it up, and then that way nobody's going to notice that there's any type of reflection going on there. I do think that there's still something a little bit weird going on here. So you just have to use your criteria to think, well, okay, is that good enough? Does it need a little bit more retouching? But basic retouching with the healing brush is a great idea to be used in Lightroom. I'm just going to zoom in and make sure that there's no sensor spots, which is when your sensor's a little bit dirty, you see a little bit of a dark spot. I did make sure to clean mine before I left for the photography session, so it looks like I'm good with that. And I don't see any other reflections. So once I'm satisfied with my photograph, in the sense that I have all the information available that I want to play with in front of me, then the fun starts. Now I can start and say, okay, I want to start doing some selective adjustments, I want to start doing some coloring, and I want to start really giving that wow factor to this photo. So right now, again, we just did all of the basic adjustments to get here. So now we're going to start doing the real fun adjustments. If you want to hide all of the tabs and just make the photo larger, the keyboard shortcut is Tab and Shift. You can just toggle that and it would hide and come out. Also, I do like to take a look at it in full screen. Press L for lights off. L twice and it goes 100% black. L a third time and it goes back again on. 1 L, 70% black. 2 Ls, 100% black. 3 Ls, it comes back on. Okay, so I think that this photo for me is a little bit too blue. So it's a little bit too cool for me, so I'm gonna go to my basic module and I'm going to start playing around with the color temperature. I want to warm it up a little because when I was there, I remember that the sunset was happening at that moment. I really did want to make sure that I saw the sunset when we were at the Hudson Yards Terrace, and it was very warm. So I'm just going to bring my temperature, my white balance, all the way to the yellow, and just I always like to push it too much. That's too much. But then I always like to bring it back slowly and then just feel it and say, okay, I can see the reflection here of the sun on the buildings. I see how the warmth of the sun is hitting them, and I love how the tungsten light of all of the little windows that are turned on, because it was right before it went dark. So the city started to become alive, and all of the lights started to turn on. And I really like when the warmth is there, that this yellow starts popping up. There we go. So we can take a quick look at the before and after. You can do the backslash, and that's the keyboard shortcut to see the before. This is the before, and this is how we started, and this is where we are now, midway into fixing this photo. Again, this can be done really quickly in probably around 3 to 4 minutes, but I am taking my time just to show you guys what's going on, why I'm taking the decisions I'm taking to fix them, and the best guide that you're going to have to know how much to fix it is your intuition, your feeling. You're really going to feel out that photo, remember that moment when you were there, and remember if you wanted to, you can do it a little bit more drastic or a little bit more subtle. I'm going right now with the feeling how it was there, and I'm just going to push it a little bit more to make it have that wow effect. So after I'm satisfied with my white balance, I love to see a little bit of magenta going on around here, a little pink color going on, and it's extremely subtle. I'm just going to open it up. If you squint your eyes, you can probably see it. It's just a little bit of pink, and that was the reflection of the sunset. New York City has one of the most beautiful sunsets because they are red and pink and orange, and they're very, very dramatic. So the sunset was all the way to the right on this photo, to the New Jersey side. This is the Hudson River. Here is the World Trade Center, Financial District. I'm looking south to Manhattan, and on the left side is Brooklyn, and that's the Brooklyn Bridge and probably the Manhattan Bridge as well. So here is the pink that I have, and the reason why I like to show it and to point it out is because we're going to enhance it with some color to make the color look beautiful like it is in the sunset. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to just give a little bit more contrast. I'm going to bring up my vibrance and see how much natural color comes out. I usually use vibrance over saturation. If I use saturation, it becomes starting to look a little bit funky and a little bit weird. So saturation affects all of the color that is on the photo. You can do it, but I usually do it no more than 5, and it's rare that I do it. So I'm not going to do it on this one. Vibrance, on the other hand, it selects the colors that are already more saturated in the photo, and it saturates them for you, and it doesn't affect all of the colors. So I really prefer, it's like a smart saturation. So I prefer to bring up the vibrance, and these subtle movements, even if you can't see them when you're doing them, it's very subtle, you can't blink. So that's going to give the magic to the photo when it's done. Now when I took a look at it, I like the texture that's going on here on the clouds, but I still feel that it's missing that wow factor. So I'm going to start giving it some selective adjustments right now. This is the first time that I'm editing this photo. Now each photo is going to have a magic of its own that is going to start to come up when you start editing it. So some things are going to work and some are not. You just have to try it out and have some fun while you're doing it. So I'm going to go to my selective adjustment. First, I'm going to go M, and M is going to give me a mask that you can do either as a gradient in a linear gradient or a radial gradient. I usually just use a linear gradient. Here's my linear gradient. My exposure is set up here to overexpose so you can see what's going on. You can underexpose it. And again, I just love to see what happens when I push it all the way to 4, what happens when I push it all the way down to -4, then go back here and then decide, okay, I'm going to make it a little bit darker, but these clouds are becoming too dark. I don't want to overpower one area over the other. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of an angle. You can select to start coloring it as well. Here you can see if you push it to 100% how it's going to start looking. You can do a very subtle one. And I think that around there is good. Maybe a little bit more red rather than magenta. I just wanted to give it a little bit, a little subtle touch. There we go. If I think it's too much afterwards, I can definitely go in and just do a brush correction. Let's try that. I'm going to delete this one. And I'm just going to try to do a brush correction. You're going to do your keyboard with a K for the shortcut. I really love to use shortcut with a keyboard because I get there quicker. So now I'm just going to select a color. I'm going to put my exposure down to around -95 or -1 and then just color where I think it's going to look good. I think it's going to look good around here. And now I'm going to reset it. And maybe just a little bit of underexposure, more color than underexposing it, and then just paint wherever I think it's going to look nice. I think that this looks a little bit better than the other way. I want it to be a little bit more subtle still. There, that sounds good. Okay, I feel that I have a light leak over here on the upper left corner, so I am going to just close that up. Over here, I'm going to reset all of my adjustments. You can double click the word effect, and that resets it to 0. So now I'm just going to use the exposure without color to balance it out. The eye naturally is going to travel to wherever the photo has the most light. So you definitely don't want the eye to leave the photo. So if I had a light leak on my upper left corner, you want to close it up here with the exposure and just making it a little bit darker. Okay, so I like the look that it's starting to get. If I do my before and my after, you can see how drastically it has changed, but I still want to bring out more my main subject, which is downtown, the financial district. So I'm going to reset my effects, and as I was mentioning before, your eye naturally travels where there's more light in the photograph. So I'm just going to paint with that K, with the brush, the spot tool. I'm just going to paint where I want the eye to go. And for me, this is exactly where I want the eye to travel to. And I can make it a little bit of a gradient, just painting and painting there. There we go. Now it looks a little bit too washed out, so I'm going to give it some contrast as well. And I'm also going to give it some clarity. And these effects are just happening to this area where I painted it. So if you want to see what area is being affected, keyboard shortcut is O, and it's going to give you a pink mask, and it's going to show you what areas you're actually adjusting. And this is the spot correction tool. So I'm going to press O again. Now I know exactly where I'm fixing. I do feel that it can go a little bit brighter, but I don't want it to go too bright because then it's going to look weird, right? So I think around there, and I think that if I add a little bit of dehaze, that's going to give me a little extra punch of this area. So now we can start seeing how this downtown area, the one that we selected, is really starting to pop out. Okay, so this is exactly where I want the eye to go when the viewer takes a look at this photo. I feel that the photo is still a little bit too cool, so I'm going to close my spot correction tool, go to my basic module for general adjustments, and I'm going to make it a little bit warmer and see how it starts looking. Okay, I do like how it started looking. I'm going to make it a little bit more exposed as well. Let's take a look at the before, the after. I'm going to continue adjusting a little bit more that white balance, and even maybe the straightness of the verticals. So there, I think that looks pretty good. Here you can see all of the detail within the photos. Perhaps we can do a little bit more of a clarity overall. And you can take a look at the adjustments while the photo is zoomed at 100% over here in 1:1. And here's the before, here's the after. And I think that I'm pretty satisfied with this photo as it is right now. So with that said, thanks to everybody for joining. Now I have to see how I turn off the live. But I really appreciate everybody that joined. If you have any questions, you can comment below. Please remember to subscribe for all of the future live programs that I'm going to be sharing with you guys. If you do have a photo that you want me to edit, for a chance for me to select your photo, send it to, in the highest resolution that you have, send it to myphototvnyc@gmail.com. And you're going to find that email on the bottom at the description of this video. If you have any questions as well, just let me know. I'm looking forward to starting this live with you guys. So hopefully you have some time to adjust some of the photos that you have and give it that wow effect. And again, this is the after, and here's the before. Bye everybody, thanks for joining.